on day 47 of quarantine, at least here in California. We're certainly somewhere in the 6th week. I have my better half with me today.
Good morning.
Robin, say hello.
Yes. Hi. So glad to be here.
I hope everybody's doing okay. As you know, if you've been reading the paper, listening to the news, we are getting very close to coming out of quarantine and opening back up, at least in part. And I was talking about this on today's Fill in the Blanks, which is now live anywhere you can find podcasts, on Apple, anywhere, Stitcher, anywhere that you find podcasts. I'm talking about it in terms of how we get back out into the world. And it's coming close. We've been in it, 6 or 7 weeks now?
At least.
Yeah.
At least. And it's exciting.
And yeah, it is. And we want to be responsible when we start going back out there, just because they say, okay, government has decided that we can go back out into the world. That doesn't mean that the virus all of a sudden says, oh, government says they can come back out, so I guess we need to go hide in the gutter somewhere. It's still there, just like it was before government decided that we can do something different. So we need to be responsible. We need to follow the science. Robin and I have been following CDC guidelines from day one, minute one.
That's right.
We've been washing our hands till they're just about out of skin.
Raw.
We've been isolating. We've been social distancing. We've been doing everything that we can. And I hope you've been doing the same, and will continue to do so. I asked Robin to join me today because this is a very special day. It's a day that is focused on giving. It's focused on charity, and it's been brought about in an emergency way because of COVID-19. Because when we've been paralyzed like this, all of the support, not all of the support, but a lot of the support for things that are so important has really kind of ground to a halt, right?
That's right. That's right. It's been really focused on the pandemic and been taken away from some pretty important issues, such as giving and giving back. So this is a very important day.
And one of the things that I've been focused on a lot, as you guys know, is that when you're in quarantine, does that keep us safe from the virus? It does, but quarantine is not without risk. There's a lot of mental, emotional backlash. And one of the things that we have a backlash on is domestic violence. And that's something that we've seen an uptick on. We've seen a lot of uptick on stress, anxiety, just different things that come with being tucked away and facing financial ruin, economic collapse. We're going to have jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And when we were looking at the questions today, Robin, the first one is for you. It's from Sam Francisco. And the question reads, Robin, I need your help. My wife's friend is in an abusive marriage and is afraid and doesn't know what to do. I don't know what to do to help her. She's in danger. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I'll say to Sam, I'm very thankful that she has you as a friend to still be able to reach out to, and that you have so much concern for her. So that's very thankful, because the number one tool of an abuser is isolation. They isolate their victims from family and friends, coworkers, everyone. So thank you for still being there for her and then reaching out to me and to us. I just have to say that one of the best ways to help her is to do everything you can to get to her and be able to, if you can, get her a phone. We have on the foundation When Georgia Smiled on our website. You can go to whengeorgiasmiled.org, and we have so much information there. It's a very educational website, and we have an Aspire app, and that you can download on a phone that would help her to alert you and other friends. But if that's not possible, stay in touch with her. Be one of those that maybe drop in and check on her, and do what you can to stay in touch and help her prepare for the time when she can safely exit that relationship.
You know, even one of the things that Robin has talked about across time is to work out a signal. If you can't get her a phone, to use the Aspire app. Even if you get 30 seconds with her, you can give her a signal that she can do. Maybe it's to put a flower pot in the window, put a book, anything in the front window. If she's in trouble, to put something in the window that you can drive by and see. Anything that signals, hey, I'm in trouble, I need help, call for a welfare check. And the way you do that is to call the sheriff. You can call the police, but it's usually the sheriff that goes out there that does a welfare check. And they will knock on that door and say, I want to see your wife. Well, she's asleep right now. Well, wake her up because I want to see her. I want to see if she's got bruises. I want to talk to her alone without you here. And find out if there's something going on to keep her safe, to keep the children safe.
And you don't have to do this alone. You can gather a posse of your friends and other friends of hers, family members, and have a group of people to help you help her.
And one of the things we're doing on this Give Back Tuesday is we do have a foundation, When Georgia Smiled, and we're raising money because Robin uses this foundation to support the shelters where women and children that are victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse can go. Because the most dangerous time for a victim of abuse is the few weeks when they leave their abuser. Why? Because the abuser is a controller. And when they feel like they're losing control and that's slipping away, that's when they panic and they ratchet up their attempts to control. So you can't just go to mother's house, you just can't go to your sister's house because they know where that is. So they have to go to a shelter that no one knows where that is. And When Georgia Smiles funds these shelters, yes. I think you're getting ready to disperse $150,000 in the next couple of weeks to different shelters. And let me tell you, it goes a long, long way. $10,000, $15,000 to a shelter makes a huge difference. Yes. And we've put together a video that we're going to play for you now that just tells you a little bit about the work of When Georgia Smiled, because we need your help. We need money. And this money, I'm telling you, 100 cents out of every dollar goes directly to a shelter to help the women and children. So this isn't something where 40% goes to overhead or what. 100 cents on the dollar goes to a shelter to help these women and children. Now, if you're on Instagram, it's hard for us to stream this. So actually what I'm going to do is stream it on our iPad here, and you're going to watch it over the phone. For those of you that are watching on YouTube and Instagram, we're going to stream it right now. And this lasts just a few minutes. I'm going to ask you to stay with us, watch this video, and I'm going to warn you in advance, this is a pretty graphic video, but it shows you the reality of what's happening. As Robin said, the number one tool of the abuser is isolation, and right now, particularly in quarantine, they have isolation mandated. So these victims are in a real, real tough spot. That's right. So let's go right now. So you can see what's going on.
My fiance, Jeremy, will beat me at least once a week. He raped me while I was pregnant.
When he started chasing me, all I knew that I needed to do was get away from him.
I'm like doused with like a big pot of oil. And he's like, that's what you get, bitch. And they gave me 48 hours to live.
Brad shot me in the stomach. He started chopping me in the back of the head with a machete.
He reached for a bottle and struck me upside the head, knocking me unconscious. Every bone in my face had been broken.
He threw gasoline at me, grabbed a candle, and I went up in flames.
Sadly, there are 20 victims of domestic violence in America every minute of every day. That's 10 million victims a year. And those are just the ones who report it.
I had black eyes. My jaw was actually broken.
I had knocked her out.
When I get angry, I turn into the devil.
Richard has told me numerous times that he's going to kill me.
We saw my dad shoot my mom in the back and stomach.
There was a moment when he said to the children, say goodbye to your mother because you're never going to see her again.
I remember my mom begging for somebody to call 911, and there was nothing I could do to help her.
The impact on children is even more troubling. Every year, 5 million children are exposed to domestic violence and sexual assault, which puts them at much higher risk for abusing drugs, alcohol, and attempting suicide. Knowing just how devastating and life-altering abuse is on those children, my husband Philip and I created When Georgia Smiled for a single purpose. He cannot hurt you out there. You're going to be safe. To help the victims of domestic violence and sexual assault.
My wife Robin is one of the foremost ambassadors in the fight against domestic violence.
1 in every 4 women in this country have been molested, and even more emotionally or physically abused or neglected. Don't carry that burden alone.
Not Got Abuse has led the charge to support victims of domestic violence.
Our honoree, Mrs. Robin McGraw.
What an unbelievable honor it is to receive this award.
28,000 victims every day. A full-blown, heartbreaking crisis. There aren't enough shelters or beds in the shelters. We partner with those shelters that help these real victims in the real world in real crisis. And in order to do that, we need your money, because it takes money to really reach out to these people, and so many of them are just simply not being served.
It has been my privilege to spearhead the efforts at When Georgia Smiled to provide worthy organizations with the resources they so desperately need.
This is our family therapy room.
In short, if they are doing great work for these men, women, and children, we want to help them reach more victims as fast as possible. It is my honor to present a grant for $50,000 to Laura's House.
With places like Laura's House, they're your support system. They will be there for you.
As much as you feel that there's no way out, there is help to be found.
Robin and I are asking you to join us, and we pledge to funnel the money to qualified resources quickly, and then make certain funds are being used exactly as intended. But make no mistake, it does take money, and lots of money, to keep lots of shelters open, reaching more and more women, children, and men in crisis.
It's going to be just a beautiful redo with the safety of the children in mind.
I'm grateful and thinking about how this is going to impact the children and the families. Thank you, Robin.
We also introduced the Aspire Initiative, a free domestic violence education curriculum.
What are the different types of abuse in a relationship?
I can't tell you how amazing I think the Aspire initiative is. It's so important that we empower our youth to be advocates for their generation.
Thank you, Robin and Dr. Phil.
And Aspire app, a life-saving resource allowing victims of abuse to call for help at the touch of a button.
The app was recognized on Capitol Hill by the National Health Collaborative on Violence and Abuse as one of the 2 apps in 2014 most beneficial to end domestic violence.
I pledge to Aspire.
Audrey is brave enough to be here today. She's showing her face for the first time.
I would like to thank Dr. Phil and Robin for providing a platform for me to show my face for the first time. And more importantly, Robin's charity allowed me to pay for my first semester back in college.
This is my fight song. Take back my life song.
Robin's genuine passion for helping others is contagious. Thank you so much for all you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Unfortunately, there are far more victims still on the waiting list, sitting at homeless shelters, on the streets, or worse still, trapped in an abusive home. We know you are likely already engaged in doing good works with your resources. We ask you to add our fight against domestic violence to your legacy.
Thank you.
'Cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. No, I've still got a lot of fight left in me.
That's not easy to watch, but that's the reality that we deal with at When Georgia Smiled, and that's your passion.
Yes, it's really, really hard to watch that video, but everything you just saw on that video is reality. It's real life, and there are so many women and children that live that life every day, and the shelters that we support allow them to escape that reality. And that's why we ask for your donations. That's why we asked for you to consider donating, because they have to escape sometimes with nothing. Sometimes the opportunity to get out of that life happens that fast, in the middle of the night or middle of the day. They see their opportunity and they have to take it just to survive, just to take another breath, just to live another day. And they leave sometimes with nothing. And so we provide the shelters. Well, we hopefully can keep the shelters open, but we provide them with what they need: clothes on their backs, food in their little tummies, and whatever they need to just live another day. And that's why we need to support the shelters, build more shelters, open more shelters, and keep the ones that are open and available for these victims and survivors, for non-victim survivors that find a way to get out and live a life filled with joy and peace and a chance to never go through that again. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm glad to hear you say that. And look, it's not fun, but somebody has to deal with this. And when I started this journey 18 years ago, I said that we were going to deal with the silent epidemics in America. And this is one of those silent epidemics. It's one of those things that people just don't talk about in polite society. But I do talk about it. We do talk about it in polite society, and we've dealt with some of these that are so difficult and tragic. And they're out there even though you don't like to look at them. And I don't push this in your face every day. And I was reading some of the comments that were popping up on the screen while we were doing this, and some of them were really smart-ass comments and making fun of the women on the screen that were on fire and stuff. And shame on you. I hope you're really proud of making those stupid comments. And I saw all the rest of you commenting on them and telling them that they needed to shut up and take this seriously. Thank you for saying that, because this is a very important thing that we take very seriously. And I hope you do too. And listen, money is tight right now, and I know that it's difficult for everyone. We've spent tons of money in this, talking millions of dollars that we've put in ourselves, and $10 to $750,000, $600,000 from people that have left legacies to help with this. And we really appreciate that. And there's a link in the description that is here on today's post that you can click on and make a donation. And every little bit helps. And as I say, 100 cents out of every dollar goes to a shelter. So it doesn't get caught up in overhead and that sort of thing. So every little bit that you can do helps, and we appreciate that. Also know that in addition to the resources on When Georgia Smiled, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is there. You can recommend that people call that. And when you call these hotlines, by the way, they don't ask you for your name. They don't pressure you into taking a step you don't want to take. They listen. They give you advice. They talk to you about resources. So don't feel like you're taking a step that's going to get you in trouble. You can call with anonymity, and they will give you the information that you need, answer the questions that are so important. So please step out and do that.
Sorry, I thought it was so important to put on whengeorgiasmile.org so much information, because education is key. And if you're not in an abusive relationship, but you know someone who is, you can go to that site and find so much information that will help you help them. And the Aspire initiative, the educational program that is an interactive program on the site, was helped us create that program with the advisory board from Dr. Phil, the show. So brilliant minds helped create that program. And it's very educational, very informative. So I encourage everyone to go to the site and go through the program and look at everything. And as Philip said, the hotlines are there in your area to help you. And it's just education is key. Just never forget that. It's very, very informative there.
You know, there are right ways and wrong ways to have conflict. I mean, everybody has conflict. The show that we have on the air today is one of the last shows we're doing about coronavirus, because we think it's important to get back to some of the things that we've always focused on with Dr. Phil, the family things, the relationship things. And today's show is about Ron and Diane, and it is a coronavirus show, but it's really about relationship. And they are in conflict, and they have big disagreements, but they're really a great example of how to handle things appropriately. He is someone that they're in a different situation. Diane has placed crystals all over the house to negate what she says is Ron's toxic energy. And Diane and Ron are still sharing the same bed because they refuse to sleep anywhere else, even though they're in divorce. And she says that Ron has called the police on her because she refused to pay her half of the grocery bill. He says that she isn't being fair about the 50-50 split on household items, so he's called the police. He locks himself in the office to stay away from conflict. But they're trapped because this quarantine, they're in this lockdown. If not, they would go their separate ways. And so many of you have written questions and said, my gosh, right now, maybe we'd do something different, but we can't. We're locked up right now. And so we really talk about what some of the things are that you can do to cope with being stuck in a situation you don't want to be in right now, but you don't want to let this deteriorate into physical violence. People resort to physical violence when they run out of socially acceptable ways to express themselves. They don't have the word power. They don't know what to say. They don't get what they need to get. And so we talk about that today. And I really focus with these folks on how to deal with this in a way that they just don't deteriorate into these violent exchanges where somebody can wind up seriously hurt or dead. So all of this is coming into focus right now. And I hope you'll watch, because I think it's a good example of what to do and what not to do. We're getting back to the things, the bread and butter of Dr. Phil that has really been so important to you over the years and so important to us over the years. And the entire month of May, from here on out, are going to be shows that we shot in studio before the pandemic. I mean, it was just right up to it. So they're going to be shows that are on stage with studio audience, with all the energy that goes along with that. And these are shows you weren't the crew on. We had a full crew there. Robin's been the crew here at home, but we're doing these. We saved those shows for May, and we're going to run them. Just know we're not violating quarantine. We shot these right up to the day that they shut everything down. So tune in for May. You're going to see some things that are going to be refreshing and remind you of what life was like before the pandemic. And remember, please, click on that link, make a donation, small or large, and know that it's going to save the type of women and children that you just saw in that video. Does it pull on your heartstrings? Of course it does, because that's reality. We need your help, and we thank you for paying attention to it. You'll feel good about helping someone else, even if it's a little bit. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for tuning in today. So long.